Hi everyone, welcome to our new episode. So today we have with us a very beautiful Shrishti Sharma. So she is actually the founder of Human Science in Kilkari. And so welcome Shrishti. We extend warm greetings
Thank
towards you. So for the
thank you. Thank
starters,
you for
would you like to give us a short introduction of yourself?
Sure. I mean, you've already, technically given up the formal introduction which is needed. So, hi, my name is Srishti. I'm the co-founder at Human Science and founder at Kilkari. And at Human Science, we basically work. We are a startup. We are a company, and we work, at stress elimination with pure scientific technique. So, our service is basically a scientific technique that helps to eliminate all kinds of stress from a human body. We'll definitely go into the detailing of it because the definition really don't make sense at the very first go. And at Kilkari, it's a social initiative that I started where we basically work on the education of the underprivileged kids that we see begging on roads. So connecting them to schools and working for their upliftment is the other project that I'm involved in. So yeah, that's the gist of the entrepreneurial ventures that I'm into.
That's great. So could you tell us about a little bit about your background? How did you start and what brought the idea of Kilkari into your mind?
Uh, so Kilkari, started very. It started on a very accidental mode. So the idea, honestly, was never to have a project that would impact kids. So how it started happened in a very funny way. So I was, I was 16 or 17, and by that time you are done with your schooling and you're looking to take admissions. And I was roaming around, and I got admission into, DU Kalindi College. And initially you really don't have a lot of friends. You tend to, explore. And in the same
Yeah.
way, in when I was in the first semester, I was going back to my home from college, and I was in the car, and I was at a red light. So this happens to be an area in New Delhi, so somewhere near Wasam Kunj is where it actually happened. So I was in the car, and I saw a small kid who was going from car to car with an English newspaper in his hand, and he was not begging, but he was going from window to window, and he was asking that what was written into that English newspaper, which really seemed very different. I mean, आप बच्चों को देखते हो जो भीख मांगते हैं, but ऐसे पूछते नहीं है, कि क्या लिखा है क्या नहीं. So that made me really curious. So by the time he came to my car and I lowered down the window and I asked him कि आप ये क्यों पूछ रहे हो, मतलब क्या हो गया, मतलब क्या क्यों पूछ रहे हो, क्या तकलीफ है. तो he said, and the answer really took me back. So he said कि मेरी मम्मी किसी घर में काम करती हैं, और वहां पे ना जो उनके बच्चे हैं, आंटी जहाँ पे काम करती हैं, उनके बच्चे ना टीवी देखते हैं, तो वहां पे इंग्लिश में लोग बात करते हैं. तो मैं देखता हूँ, मुझे बड़ा मजा आता है. तो मैंने भी सोचा कि अब से मैं इंग्लिश मतलब चाहता हूँ सीखना. So that answer was really not something that I was expecting, because a lot of times, when we go out and we see these kids begging, we start criticizing the parents, and we say कि इनको तो पढ़ाना ही नहीं है, इन्हें तो पढ़ना ही नहीं है, ऐसे ही रहना चाहते हैं. But the reality is not the way it is. So that answer, really kind of made me interested into wanting to talk to that kid more. So I told him कि आप मुझे अपने घर के पास या अपनी मम्मी से बात कराओ. So I parked the car, I took, and I saw a group of 13 to 14 families, and these are the families who stay on roads, so they don't have their own houses, they don't live in slums. जो आप लोग देखते हो जो बलून्स वगैरह बेचते हैं और वहीं रोड पे रहते हैं. So I went there, I asked, इतने बच्चे हैं, आप उनको स्कूल नहीं भेजना चाहते? And I was expecting कि कहेंगे कि नहीं, हमें तो काम कराना है. But they didn't said that. They said कि हम भेजना चाहते हैं, but स्कूल हमें एडमिशन लेता नहीं है. And that was another answer that I was not expecting, because government schools are meant to actually, teach kids from all backgrounds, irrespective of the economic status. So I was shocked कि आपको स्कूल मना करता है, क्या करता है. So she told me that the principal refuses to admit our kids because, as per her, these kids are going to spoil the reputation of the school and they're going to make the other kids bad. So that was again very shocking, क्योंकि मैं expect ही नहीं करती कि answers आएंगे. Yeah. So luckily, road cross करके there was a school by the name of NP Girls School. The name says girls, but it was a co-ed school. So I don't know what really struck me, but I thought that if I've gone and I've researched and I've got the answers, I should not just go back and sit home कि चलो ऐसे एक दिन हुआ था. Because politicians are already doing that, and they go, they ask people their problem, and they don't come up with a solution. Right. So I started experimenting. I took these kids, there were 13 kids, and I took them to the school and I talked to the principal, and it wasn't easy. She literally refused me on my face, saying कि ये बच्चे हमारे स्कूल का माहौल खराब करते हैं, गाली गलौज करते हैं, हम इनका एडमिशन नहीं कराएंगे. To which I started fighting. I literally started fighting.
Because that is you do it or the school.
Exactly. I mean, she being into the position of an educational head, right, is, I mean, these words coming from her mouth was something that I didn't expect at all. And I was really shocked. So I literally took it, in not a very positive, and I started fighting with her, and I made sure that these kids are admitted. And it happened, it took me a week. I used to, go there daily. College to wahi tha. So मैं जाती थी admission. I was happy, कि चलो कुछ, I've done something good. So I just started with experimenting. And after a week, I went back again to see if the kids are still going to the school or not. And when I went back, I was shocked because all of them had literally dropped out. After a week, एडमिशन कराया, एक हफ्ते की फाइट मारी, झगड़ा किया, पुलिस कंप्लेंट्स, धमकियां दी, एंड आफ्टर ऑल ऑफ दैट फाइट these kids were not going to the school. To which I asked कि अब क्या हो गया, अब तो to which I asked, what happened, why are you not going to the school? And the problem that they said कि हमें कुछ समझ नहीं आता, and that was true, and that is the first time I realized the flaw that the Indian education system holds. So as per right to education, the entire law on which this project is based on eventually says that if there's a 10-year-old kid, he's supposed to be admitted in standard 5th. But can you imagine अगर एक 10 साल का बच्चा जिसको ABCD भी नहीं आती, तो वो 5th class में बैठ के करेगा क्या?
Obviously.
So I think that is, so that is where I won't say that the law is not the way it should be, but the execution and the practicality of it was questioned. To which we thought that yes, there's a problem. Just connecting a kid to a school won't really, ensure a bright future for him or her. So that is where, the entire concept of Project Kilkari started. And then we identified कि एक ही छोटी सी जगह पे 13 बच्चे हैं. Just imagine the number of kids that would be there in Delhi and then in India. So I think this is a problem that has to be solved. And that is how Kilkari started. It never started with an idea on board and, saying that we are going to change the world. It didn't happen that way.
So it happened, curiosity just struck you.
Yeah, I mean, if I've gone there, it's like at times destiny really takes you to some places, and then you feel this is something that I should work on to make an impact. So I think that's what at least Kilkari started with me. When it comes to other ventures, then we had a proper meeting, and we were talking about stuff and we were looking at problems. But this happened in a very dramatic way, I would say. We never thought of starting it the way it has. Yeah.
Nice. So basically, destiny took you there to help these kids.
I think so.
That's so nice.
And that's the project that makes me the happiest. I mean, that's the seeing the kids smiling is what makes me really happy.
And you are the reason behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I started it, so I think I'm the chosen one to be starting it. But thanks to the entire team, we have more than 300 people, working at Kilkari day in and day out. Honestly, I don't get the kind of time that I should be giving because of my time commitment to other projects. But thanks to these people, who selflessly work day in and day out to really bring the kind of impact that we want to.
That's so nice. Yeah. So how did you actually manage your college as well as Kilkari? It would have been really hectic, How did you
manage? Was, and yeah, I mean, and I was doing economics honors. So that is a course that demands, you to be there in the classrooms all the time. Yeah. It is one of the, apparently the most difficult course that they say across the curriculums that we have. So managing it was a challenge, I would say. And being extremely honest, I won't be really talking about time management. I'll be very honest and I'll be brutally honest. I skipped colleges and I skipped classes because what I was doing was something that I was very passionate about. So I had to let go of the regular, attendance and lectures, and my attendance at the end of the semester was always between 4 to 5%. But, and a lot of times I've got those threats of not being able to sit in the exams and give the examinations. But yeah, I remember writing the applications and apologies, and I used to, submit it at the semester. Yeah, but things went well. So managing is a task, but I think if you're doing something that you're passionate about, time management is something that can be looked at. It is not impossible. I mean, I think if I can do it, anybody can. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, so far, what has been the impact of Project Kilkari?
So Kilkari started around 3 years back. Right now, we are a team of more than 300 people. We are operational at more than 18, places. So we started with a single Pathshala, and today we have around 18 Pathshalas. Yes, due to the pandemic, the target was to be available at least 50, places, but it didn't happen because of the physical model that we have. So yes, we've been able to impact around 5,000 to 6,000 kids, and more than 1,700 kids have been admitted into schools. And besides that, at 18 Pathshalas, we are able to actually tackle and teach around 5,500 kids, 5 days a week. So I think I'm happy with the kind of impact we have made and the life that we have changed. So far, so good, and the plans are huge ahead. The idea is to take this project at a national level and to go about it. And definitely including technology now is very important with the pandemic
Yeah.
being there and social distancing. I
Absolutely.
think the technological aspect, which was definitely missing in Kilkari, is something that we are working on these days. So
Right.
hopefully we'll take it at the next level where we have dreamt it to be.
That's nice. So, do you think that right to education in our country is benefiting underprivileged children?
Um, initially this law was intruded into the Indian judiciary system with the vision of actually impacting kids and
Right.
connecting any kid, irrespective of his or her economic background, to their basic right, which is education. And education is a basic right to every child, irrespective of wherever they come from, whichever gender they belong to. So I
Hmm.
think definitely when it would have been intruded into the judiciary system, this would have been the thought. But unfortunately, I don't think that the practical execution is actually benefiting the kids, because a law states and tends to protect the right of a kid. But as I've said, and as the encounters that I've had, and with the kind of experiences that regularly we have with government schools and private schools, I think that the execution is not the way it should be. Although the law says that it has to protect the rights of the child, but I don't think practically it is, because if the people sitting on those positions are not really
Yeah.
happy to have these kids into the system, then I don't know what's the use of the law. I mean, even today, despite being established the way we are, uh, we have a lot of difficult times in dealing with a lot of people at the position of power. I remember going to these offices where there are MCD heads and officers that are all sitting there, and these are the people who really control how the government school system works. And I remember being literally being thrown out by one of these political leaders. I don't want to name him, but I literally went to him with this. I went him around one to 2 years back when this Ryan International School case happened. If you would have
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
remembered,
Yeah.
the kid was hit by the bus driver.
Pradyuman, right.
So
I
I think
remember
keeping
him.
the safety of these kids in mind, we really wanted to have a system where we can conduct the Pathshala inside the school. So
Okay.
with that proposal, I went to one of these political leaders, and he was the head of, I won't mention in detail, which
Yeah,
organization I'm
obviously.
talking about. But I went there and he made me wait for 1 week. I remember going 4 times a week. And after that, I got a 10-minute appointment with him. I went there, I proposed, and he literally told me to get up and get out. So, I mean, uh, I've had those experiences. So I don't think the execution in our country is
Yeah.
happening the way it should. If it would have been happening, then projects like Kilkari or Teach for India would have not really needed to step up and make a change if things would have been happening the way they are. So
Exactly.
I think politically we are really weak at the execution of it.
We
The
have
law
a
is
long
there,
way
it's
to
good.
go.
Yeah, the very long way to go. Things needs to be changed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Shrishti, I personally feel that when it comes to social initiatives, one of the most difficult part is, fundraising. So, how did you
Yes.
manage to raise funds for your project?
Initially when we were establishing Kilkari, the idea was very clear that we will not have a capital intensive model, and we will try to create a model where we might not need monetary involvement. At least that's what our agenda was since day one. And that
Mm.
was solely because we were very young at that point of time. We all were
Yeah.
18, 19, and we were in the first and the second year of colleges. So my first advice to any person who's trying to intrude into the social entrepreneurship field is that always try to create a model where you don't need a lot of money. You can always work on collaborations. Because right now, if you look at the outer aspect, people assume that we have our own centers which are, owned and operated by us, and hence it needs a lot of monetary funds. But that's not how we are. In Kilkari, in the last 3-4 years, we've never felt the need of raising more than 3 lakhs. Just imagine 3
Okay.
lakhs for around 5 to 6,000 kids is nothing. So I
Right.
think how we went initially was to create a model where you don't have to be dependent on funds. We work on collaborations. None of these pathshalas are owned and operated by us. We don't have to pay rents for it. We collaborate. We look for organizations. We look for places where they need us, and there can be a good, exchange of resources.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
we have the teaching workforce, we have kids, they have kids. We collaborate and we work. So I think when it comes to social entrepreneurship, having the art of not really needing money is very
Mhm.
important. So I think it's very important for all the social entrepreneurs to learn how to create a model where you don't need a lot of funds. But yes, having said that, you can't work like that all the way. If you have to take things forward, then you need money. So I
Obviously.
think raising, yeah, you. So I think raising donations is one of the ways. then you always have, all these beautiful campaigns that you can run across the crowdfunding platforms. Keto is there. So many are there. In India, we have so many leading sites that really help you to reach your motive. So I think we have raised a lot of funds from crowdfunding sites, and it has really worked really well for us. Besides that, yes, we've now in the last 6 months, we have gone for the typical, raise fund for Kilkari, because we thought that this is the time we're going to expand. So yes, we approached few of the CSR of the companies, and they have reverted in a very positive way, and we raised a small amounts of fund. And going forward, we do tend to raise. So there's always a lot of fund. Funds are never a problem. The reason people don't opt for social entrepreneurship is assuming that the funds are not there. But if you're approached, then there are a lot of ways in which funds can be raised.
Nice. And collaboration is an important way, like, different social entrepreneurs coming together.
Exactly. I mean, there are so many people who are doing so good work in their respective fields. Right. But it's very important for us to really know where we can go and collaborate and make things happen. Right. So I think that's what has worked brilliantly for Kilkari. We've never felt the need to raise funds. Now we assume, that okay, we might give all these kits or some other thing just as a luxury product, because it's no longer a need. We've created a model where we don't need money. Literally, we do not. But but I mean, if you get money, then definitely there are a lot of benefits for it. But yes, money is not the only factor on which this project is dependent. We don't need it.
That's great. So do you have a message for people like you, who are aiming to start a social initiative or trying to be social entrepreneurs?
The only message is that go for it. I mean, what is it that we are waiting for? With the pandemic literally hitting the economy worse than ever, the problem has actually increased. So, there's always a scope, and every problem can actually lead you to an opportunity, which can really, create the kind of impact that you want to. So I think a lot of times the reason people don't step into social entrepreneurship is because it doesn't seem fancy. Right. It really seems boring. It seems, that what will I get out of it? What will I earn out of it? And I think that's a problem that at least I have realized, after talking to a lot of people who really want to start up into the social entrepreneurship field. So I think that's not how it is. It's very important that we really understand what exactly social entrepreneurship is, what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages. And I think the only thing that really keeps me sticking to social entrepreneurship is the smile that you get after, changing or impacting. I think that is priceless. Right. No wonder what kind of package you get in whatever XYZ company, but this kind of satisfaction is something that nobody can take away from you. So I think social entrepreneurship, there are a lot of myths around it. So I think it's amazing. It's amazing when you see, because of your actions, people are smiling and their lives have changed. You really can't let go of that amazing feeling. So I think the only message is that please try and understand exactly what social entrepreneurship. It's not boring. It's not just slums visit. There's a lot more into it, and there's a lot more that you can, get out of it. So that's my only message, that just go for it. Don't wait.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, this one is going to be the last question. So during the early days of Kilkari, how hard was it for you to, make people understand your vision?
It was very difficult. I'll be very honest here, because a lot of times people have asked me that what were the greatest challenges when you were starting, your way out into social entrepreneurship. Yeah. And I've always said my age and my gender. I'm very happy to be a woman and a girl, and I'm not complaining about it. But the sad reality and the fact is that being a girl, and especially being a girl or a woman into social entrepreneurship, makes the journey a little more difficult. Okay. So be it the slums visit that you have to do, or be it, going out and talking to the beneficiary community that you want to communicate with, people don't take you very seriously. I was not taken up seriously. I was barely 18 years old. I was alone at that point of time. I didn't tell anyone. I was just researching and I was going out. And लोग आपको अजीब से देखते हैं, they assume कि time pass कर रही है, या publicity के लिए आई है, या photos खींचने आई है, or she's trying to prove she's a good human. So I think challenges तो बहुत हैं. At every step you're questioned, you're challenged, you're looked down upon. So challenges तो बहुत थे. Initially, being a girl and going out alone was one of the biggest challenge. Right. Then second was to be taken up seriously, as I've already mentioned. People don't take you seriously a lot of times. The third challenge, I would say, that happens a lot of times. That's the reason we have very few female entrepreneurs, and at least that is the area in which I want to work coming in future. Let's see where we go. Coming back to the question, the third challenge, I would say, was to convince people that you're here for their good. People don't understand it. especially, you know, when you go to slums or when you go to these areas where you want to impact people, they see you as fancy objects. You know, they see, because they're used to it. You know, again,
Right.
I'm not against any politician or any against political party, but this happens. You know, when the elections are there, politicians go, they do all these promises, and they go back and things never happen. So
Right.
at least I was you know, I and my friends, we were looked at as fancy objects. That they've
Hmm.
come, they're going to talk, maybe because of some projects or because of some kind of drama that they have to do, and they're going to go back. So a
Yeah.
lot of times it's very difficult for them to convince that we are here for your good and we are not here for our benefits. So I think convincing these communities is one of the strongest challenge that all the social entrepreneurs do face. Then the fourth one is the scalability of it and to get the like-minded people on board. Trust me, it's
Okay.
very easy to create a team when you go for you know, startups or when you have an idea. But when it comes to social entrepreneurship, it's very difficult to get people on board.
Right.
People who are crazy enough to be here not just for a certificate but to actually change life, because a lot of times people intern at NGOs just to get one certificate, to
That's
say
true.
that okay, we are done, because we get, you know, marks for CSR activities. So one of the
Hmm.
challenges was to get the right people. I mean, it took me 1.5 years to actually get my main core team for Kilkari on board. So I think these are the few challenges that I've faced, and there are many more, many more. But I think as long as you are pretty much sure as to what you want to do with your project and work, you will be unstoppable. I think that's what I feel. There's always a solution at the end of the day.
Yeah. If there's a
Yeah,
will, there's a way.
for sure. It sounds cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true actually. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Shrishti, for joining us and telling us your story. I'm sure this is going to inspire a lot of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs who, wish to make a change in people's life just like you are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.
You too.